fully
Oh,
closed.
because like nothing ever really.
Which is fine. And you shouldn't be doing that. You don't have to worry about that. This is the malfunctioning one, so that gives an opportunity to just start again.
Did you happen to find $2 or $3 million while we've been gone?
Although at least now they've
2,
loaded.
3,
No,
4?
yeah,
Do we need-
now it's not stuck in whatever loop it was stuck in.
Well, we just got 4, didn't we?
I meant
Additional?
four that he was gonna like just fix the budget with. You know, so it's a 0 tax increase. You didn't find nobody left
So
the
it says
bag
0
in the
what?
back alley or the,
I would feel irresponsible if we said 0.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Do you need power tape? Okay.
Oh, that goes with that.
Well, this gavel's been around for a long time. Are we ready to go? Okay, I'm gonna use the gavel today. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday, April 25th special council meeting in Chambers this afternoon. Welcome, everybody. Sorry for the late start, but it's nice weather out there, and nobody wants to come in the building. We're gonna have to contemplate an outdoor venue for the odd
Like it.
city council meeting. Anyhow, so I'd like to call the meeting to order. We would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Ktunaxa, the Syilx, and the Sinix people, and is home to the Métis and many diverse Aboriginal persons. We honor their connection to the land and rivers and respect the importance of the environment to our strength as a community. I'd like to add just at this moment that I think all of our thoughts turned last week when we heard the announcement of an additional 40 unmarked graves being found at Seashelt. And our hearts go out to that community and that Indigenous First Nation in the Seashelt area. Introduction of late items. Anybody have a late item? Seeing none. If there could be an adoption of the agenda as presented, please. Moved by Tate, seconded by Payne. All those in favor, and that is carried. We have no, do we have any minutes? No. No previous or up to date. And recommendations from staff. Starting off with the 5-year financial plan bylaw 3571. And the 5-year financial plan for the period 2023-2027 is being presented for council's consideration. The plan includes the revenues and expenditures planned for 2023 through 2027 that have been presented to both council and the public. All proposed expenditures, fund sources, and transfers to or between funds must be included in the plan. Both the operating budget and the capital budget information are attached to Schedule A of the bylaw. The 5-year financial plan bylaw 3571-2023 is presented for first 3 readings. And so I'm just going to turn it over to Chris Jury, the Chief Financial Officer, to say a few words, and then if council has any questions before we move on to the.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So this is our 5-year financial plan bylaw. It's a consolidation of, we went through and talked about the general budget. We had our water and wastewater a little earlier in the year, and even prior to that, we had Nelson Hydro. So those all get rolled into this one 5-year financial plan for 2023 to 2027. It reflects a 5.8% increase in property taxes, 2% for water, 2% for wastewater, and a 4% for the urban hydro rates is included in here. We discussed at the open house sort of the implications to that typical Nelson single-family dwelling, that it would be a $106 increase annually for the property taxes, or $8.85 a month. There was a 4.2% overall increase for residential. We've managed over the last 5 years to keep that in line with or slightly under inflation overall, so that's positive. So yeah, this is, as I said, puts this all together along with the capital It must be adopted prior to May 15th, so this year that means it's May 12th, just with the way that the weekends work there. And it has to be adopted prior to the tax rate bylaw. As I mentioned, we had the open house. We didn't get any direct feedback from that event. Myself and the deputy CFO did present again, sort of a shortened version of the open house presentation at the Chamber of Commerce last Wednesday. There were some great questions that were there, but in general, it's all very positive and some support that we're moving in the right direction here. And yeah, so here, this is the bylaw for our recommended financial plan for the 2023 to 2027.
Councillors, any questions? Councillor Payne?
CFO Jerry, I just am wondering, and you may have mentioned this before, but there was a lot of information, where the Healthy Community Grant or Growing Communities Grant.
Yeah, so that's not reflected in the financial plan, so.
Okay, how does that, is
Yeah.
that okay if I ask, or should I wait for another time? I'm just wondering where it shows up.
Well, it won't show up in this financial plan, so when we receive those funds, we'll have to get together and come up with a plan of how we're going to use those. In the meantime, it's required that they'll go into their own reserve, and, we'll spend out of that reserve and report how those funds are spent. So we need some kind of direction, and I imagine we'll work together. Some things will probably come out as strategic priority sessions and things like that we can incorporate into a financial plan. They may be something for 2024, or we may end up, this is an initial plan, but there's always opportunities to revise the financial plan. So if we want to look at utilizing some of those funds in 2023, we can always make an amendment to include that.
Okay, just wondering, because I know the provincial government needed to clear it out of their budget by March 31st. So it shows
Correct.
up on their books as being dispersed, but.
Right.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank you for that point of clarity.
Any further questions? So, Councillor, I would entertain recommendations. If somebody would like to move.
So moved, number 1.
Okay, and you want to read it, please?
That the Corporation of the City of Nelson Annual Tax Rate Bylaw Number 3572, 2023 be introduced and read a first and second time by title only.
Is there a seconder? And I think you read annual tax, and it's actually the 5-year financial plan, but that's okay. You read the second one, not the first one. So it's been moved and seconded, and is,
It's actually,
Not okay.
sorry,
Yeah.
the financial plan is given the readings before the
Yeah.
tax rate bylaw, so he said 5.
he said the tax rate one, but it's 3571. It's just page 3. If you flip to the annual tax rate one.
I'm sorry.
So the recommendation is that the
2.
5-year financial plan, 2023 to 2027, bylaw number 3571, 2022, be introduced and read a first and second time by title only. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. Sorry. There we go. Let's try the next one. Councillor Page.
That the 5-year financial plan 2023 to 2027 bylaw number 3571, 2023 be read a third and time by title only.
And is there a seconder? Councillor Tate. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you. So our next item on the agenda is the annual tax rate. And so each year, City Council approves a 5-year financial plan which establishes the annual budget and priorities. An annual tax rate bylaw is also required in order to collect the appropriate funds and activities. The annual tax rate bylaw supports the initiatives of the city's 5-year financial plan and therefore supports the city's corporate objectives. The annual tax rate bylaw number 3572, 2023 is presented for first 3 readings. So once again, I'll ask Chris Jury, Chief Financial Officer, for some comments.
Yep, thanks again, Mayor. So these are just the tax rates that are required in order to generate the tax revenues set out in the 5-year financial plan that we already had 3 readings of. The only other couple additions here are, and it's a bit interesting maybe, that as we talked about, there are other taxes that appear on the City of Nelson tax notices that go out. There's our taxes, there's regional district, there's the school tax, there's the hospital tax, MFA and BC assessment are also on there. Only the tax rates that we determine go on our own bylaw. So regional district just gives us a lump sum and we have to calculate the actual tax rates. Same with the hospital. That's why they appear on this bylaw. School tax, they send us a rate and say, collect this amount. So it's a little bit different, but that's why those two entities are on our bylaw and school tax and MFA and BC assessment are not. But we don't have any control over those rates. It's just math to figure out what those rates are. But, we did talk a little bit about how the regional district was a 7% increase in their requisition. Interesting, the hospital will actually be a bit of a decrease for folks in Nelson, and that's because it's a regional budget, and when other assessments go up by more than Nelson's do, then, they pick up a little bit of a larger share of that, and we see a bit of a reduction. So that'll be, it's a small sliver of what the total taxes are, but it is.
Great. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Tate.
More of a comment than a question, but I noticed that we have 9 tax rates and like many dozens of zoning types. I just love to see that we can actually crank down those into something more simple when we have the tax rates, as opposed to like the dozens and dozens of types of zones we have where all of these different things have to fall within those. It's like distilled more succinctly with those tax rates.
These ones are.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and these are set by BC assessment. They classify a property as, hey, this is a class 6, this is a class 3, so we don't get to determine where they go in, but it seems to be a system that works, but at a very high level. But yes, these are their classifications for each
We have a
property.
number, Councillor Tate, just so you're aware, that we do not have all of these classes represented within the boundaries of the city of Nelson.
Right, no farms.
No farms,
Managed
no
forest
managed
or-
forest,
Major industry.
and no major industry. We have,
Yeah, we do actually have major industry this year.
do we?
Yep, and it is the ferry that they're building
Oh,
yeah.
on there. That got classified as major industry. Not going to be on there forever, but it's on there for 2023.
No managed force.
Councillor Payne, you have a question.
So I guess my follow-up to Councillor Tate's question is, we determine the rates in each of those categories, even though the... Right.
Correct, yes.
Based on our need, and I would say the rate that moves the most is residential and commercial.
Yeah, those are
Try
the
to keep
largest
that
for sure.
75, because
Yes.
just to explain that through, I mean, we try to keep 75, 25% balance, so those rates will change potentially on a yearly basis, a small amount, those two rates in particular.
Yeah, historically, we've tried to keep the amount of tax that we generate from residential properties at 75% of the total, and then the commercial to be 25. And when assessments go up, relatively the same amount, this year was 5.3 for residential, and I think 8 and some change for commercial. There's not too much of a difference, but some years, if you have a big divergence, then it takes a little bit more shifting, but this year was fairly close, so not too much of an adjustment needed.
And just to follow up, if I may? Sure. I'm interested that supportive housing and residential are at the same rate. So is that something that we determined, or is that something we'll determine in the year going forward?
Yeah, and the supportive housing gets assessed at $1 for property and $1 for land, so there's a rate on there, but really it's non-taxable.
That clarifies that question.
Any further questions, councillors? Okay. Would somebody like to move on to the first recommendation? Councillor Tate.
That the Corporation of the City of Nelson Annual Tax Rate Bylaw Number 3572-2023 be introduced and read a first and second time by title only.
Any further discussion, councillors? All those in favor?
Second?
Oh, sorry.
Second?
Seconded by Councillor Payne. All those in favor? Opposed? And carried. Great. And recommendation number 2? Councillor Tate.
That the Corporation of the City of Nelson Annual Tax Rate Bylaw Number 3572, 2023 be read a third time by title only.
Seconder. Councillor Page. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. Thank you. Thank you, Chris Shuri. Thank you to your team and all the work, and all of the other city managers and staff for the process that we go through and making sure that we all understand what the City of Nelson does in all of the departments. So if you could pass along our thanks at your next department head meeting, that would be great. And could you tell us what day final reading would be? Do you have, no? Is that the next?
It'll be May.
It'll be the May meeting. Okay, so the business meeting in May, we will do the final readings. And then, the other piece of news that really the listening audience wants to know is, when will these be in their mailbox?
Yes, well, we will, we usually try to get those out near the last couple weeks of May. So, we'll start generating and printing. We still have to wait for those school tax rates to come in. So it's not that we can, we're waiting until the last minute. We do have to wait for those to come in before we can start printing anything.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, councillors, moving on to what we all are here early for today. And that is the ReDi grant funding and the final decisions going forward. So the Columbia Basin Trust, CBT, provides funding for area projects pursuant to the resident-directed ReDi grant program, which is administered by the Regional District of Central Kootenay. At this meeting, councillors requested to select which grant applications to fund and in what amount. The decision must be formalized in a resolution for submission to the Regional District of Central Kootenay. So we have both Gabe with us and, I'm having to bring Sonia to help us walk through this process. It's a little bit challenging from time to time. And I thought, Gabe, just let me know, we didn't get a chance to talk beforehand, that I have this lovely summary. Were you planning to read this out? Or shall I read it out and we will do the juried selections first?
Of course, you could proceed in that fashion. I wasn't planning to read it. I could read it. I distributed it to council so that you could see the input that was provided from the Arts and Council and Heritage jury. But I'd be happy to read it if you would like, Mayor.
I think that would be great. So I'll let you read it and then people don't have to.
Sure.
So I just think it's important that they understand that it is a juried process and what the criteria is that they're using to get to where they get to on that.
And just a reminder for the public, so pursuant to Council's CBT grants policy, 25% of the CBT funding is allocated to arts, culture, and heritage projects. And typically, the process has been that an arts, culture, heritage jury that is coordinated by the city's cultural development officer puts together recommendations to council for that 25% of the funding. And that those projects that fall into the ACH bucket are identified in advance, and then the jury meets and makes a recommendation to council with regards to that portion of the funds. Council is free to accept that, or if we'd like to make modifications, it can do so as well. So I'll just read out the submission from the city's cultural development officer with regards to the work of that jury. The City of Nelson's Cultural Development Committee put together an independent jury of 5 individuals from the community with expertise in the following areas: heritage, represented by J. Pete Stein; visual arts, Erica Conrad; performing arts, Michelle Hart; media arts, Carlo Alcos; literary arts, Zainab Mohammed. The jury, chaired by the CDO Joy Barrett, met via Zoom on Tuesday, April 18th for approximately 2 hours. Approximately 14 days prior to this, each jury was provided with a package that included the applications, the City of Nelson guidelines and criteria for the application process, and an evaluation matrix based on these criteria. The voting sheets were compiled prior to the online session to provide a starting point. However, the final recommendations were determined from the Zoom discussion. A consensus was required to fully support, partially support, or not support each project. Jurors were asked to disclose any conflicts of interest and were removed from that portion of the discussion. The decisions were particularly difficult this year as there were many excellent projects, but funding was limited. The adjudication criteria that the ACH jury uses is by looking at ability. Is there evidence of ability, training, and experience to successfully complete the project? Benefit. Does the project provide a clear benefit to the community, creating meaningful experiences and opportunities for participants? Cultural strength. Does the project encourage and promote artistic and creative expression in our community, supporting a vibrant cultural center where artists, creators, and innovators flourish? Sustainability. Does the project contribute to the long-term growth and stability of our cultural sector? And finally, equity. If the project benefits the region as a whole, does it clearly indicate that proportional funding is being requested from other jurisdictions? So as you can see, the process that the jury uses is quite similar to that is used for council. And I have provided you all with the jury's recommendations, and they are also on the sheet that we'll be using today, and it's the first 19 projects there. And you can see that all except for 5 of those projects did receive a funding recommendation from the Arts, Culture, and Heritage jury. And that makes up the $36,799 that was set aside for the ACH group.
Thank you, Gabe. So, does anybody have any questions or concerns regarding the juried recommendations? Councillor Payne.
I'm interested to know if the jury was aware of the COVID grants that had been dispersed or were planning to be dispersed to, because 2 of the organizations that given money to were recipients.
So the jury, I believe that they met on April 18th. I'm not sure when I guess the COVID grants would have been determined before that. I believe that certainly the Cultural Development Officer was aware of the COVID grant funding, as she's helps coordinate different organizations in the community to know about grants opportunities. I would also note that the fundings are for 2 different things. So the COVID the COVID grant funding that was available from the city was to make up for lost revenue as a result of pandemic impacts, whereas the CBT ReDi grants is for specific projects that would not take place without the funding, if that makes sense. So these are oftentimes new initiatives or recurring initiatives. They're not really revenue generating, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, it was, I wasn't clear because we didn't see the applications for the COVID grant, but the Kootenai Musical Theatre, I think, they do 1 production a year, so I was just interested if the $7,500 that they got from the COVID grant, so you're saying that's to make up for previous years where they didn't make money?
So they had to demonstrate a loss of revenue to be eligible for the COVID recovery grants, whereas to put
so
in...
that $7,500 would have been for the previous 2 years where they lost revenue?
Correct.
Okay.
Whereas with a CBT ReDi grant, they're proposing a project that's forward-looking. So it may not be something they've done in the past. It may be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Just interested to make sure that information was available to the.
Any further questions, councillors? And we can always at a later date discuss whether or not we want to continue with the process of the 25% to this juried format, for sure. But as long as everybody's okay with this, do we have any specific recommendations here?
You will need to pass a resolution.
Yeah, we know. I just want to know what the specific, it's the whole thing, but we could do this as 2 resolutions, corporate officer?
We could, or we can just,
Just hold off and wait and do it all at once? Okay.
And if I may, Mayor, just so that I know I mentioned this to you before the meeting started, but just so all of council is aware, the sheet that I circulated yesterday, which you have a printed version on your desk, and also is what we have up on the screen. That number in the top right corner, the 26,000, that's kind of the number to keep your eyes on today. We'll be updating it as we go through the sheet. Obviously, it won't update on your paper version or on the version on your computer, but up here, what that number shows is that's the amount of funds that remain after accepting the arts jury recommendations, and also all of the projects that received 7, 6, 5, or 4 votes at the amount shown in the column U there, you'd still have $26,000 to allocate, even accepting all of those allocations. So as a starting point, there is $26,000 on the table that has not yet been allocated.
Okay, so just to be clear, the jury did spend their whole allotment of money, so it is all spent. The other thing would be, I guess, is that if, when we go through this and we still have money left over, it doesn't preclude us from actually going back into those top ones. But I don't want to muck up the water here too much, because we had a number of applications. We had 65 applications or whatever it was. But we could go back and add more money to those ones that were in the juried amounts as well. So, Councillor Page.
If I'm not getting premature,
You might be, but anyhow.
Yeah, how will we?
Go ahead.
I would point out, as per the layout of this policy, following our previous year's practice, there are a number of amounts that were funding that received 4 votes or more, did not receive full funding. If I do the math on the differential, that's $20,993. If we took all of those, because of course varying councillors may have decided not to fully fund certain things. If we said, okay, we've seen a majority of council want to support these, if we max out their requests, that eats about $20,000 worth of that, and we could go over them individually, but I'm just pointing it out.
Councillor Woodward.
Thank you. Point of clarification, Councillor Page is saying that we go from receive 4 votes and above,
Yeah.
and max out their asks,
Wherever any of them didn't get their full asks,
then that would,
that's
so then we-
$21,000.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, so, so just to go through it again, so, I mean, obviously, one received 7 votes, and so just to look at that one, it's not the full amount, but of the 7 people that voted, I just have to make sure that I've got this right, and Gabe will tell me if I don't, is that all 7 of us said, we like this project. Somebody had, the lowest amount was 10, and that's what you're seeing reflected there. Is
No, sorry, Mayor, let me just correct you. The lowest amount, that 10,000, reflects what the 4th councillor would have allocated.
what
So
the 4th councillor allocated.
yes, so
okay.
for example.
But, okay, it always works on the number 4, okay.
Yes, because
So,
that-
but anyway, so there was 4 councillors, so.
Yes.
So 4
No.
councillors were 10 or more.
Yes.
And 3 that filled this out were less than.
Yes, and I know that feels a bit confusing, but what it's designed to show is that, you know, it shows that there's a
Right.
majority. There's 4 of
majority.
you that wanted to give at least 10,000. So just so that everyone understands, for example, in looking at that project in particular, if you look across, we had a councillor that gave 10, a councillor that gave 5, 3 councillors that gave the full amount, and then another one that gave 10, and another one that gave 5. But we still arrive at that 10,000 as the starting point, because at least 4 of you wanted to give that amount or more.
Right.
Roger, thank you.
So, yeah, just so everybody understands how we get to that number, because you might be wondering like, well, that wasn't my number, and that's because it might not have been your number.
It's the 4th highest number.
Yes.
Correct.
Gotcha.
And for example, when you get down to the group of 4 and you see something like 397 that was put aside for the West Kootenai, for the 100% renewable energy working group, it doesn't, maybe the weakness in this methodology is that it doesn't show, for example, that 3 councillors did want to fund the 2,000, but the 4th one wanted to fund 397. So the 397 is your starting point. In the, you know, just a bit more context, you know, in the 4 years that I've done this, you know, sometimes we've started at the top and worked our way down. Sometimes you've started at the bottom and worked your way up. So there is some flexibility in I'll certainly defer to council.
Any thoughts, or would you like to just keep going, Gabe? Councillor Woodward?
Well, I would like to second what Councillor Page is saying, because my rationale would be that up to the 4 vote, so that would be the majority of council agreed on these projects, and we could top them up and still have 6,000 left. And that way we know that council was in agreement of all these up to the 4 votes, which seems,
I did make an error and I forgot to include
Okay.
the 7th fund. So I didn't include the 6,000 for the Cottonwood Creek Falls. So
oh, okay, so,
you'd have a deficit
okay.
of $100.
But essentially, I just, it feels like fairly, or it feels very fair that what Councilor Page is
Right.
saying is that we all kind of agreed up to the 4 vote, so that, for all these projects, so if we just,
So let's just, so yeah, so just go back, so then what are you short? You forgot to add in the
Suzu's.
6,450?
Yeah.
And then where,
That takes us to $27,443.
so we could go there to 16,000, say, and then,
Like, I agree, maybe start from the top. However, I actually think, perhaps before, I just wanted to point it out, there may be projects, just to be fair, 2 and 3, that we believe are important, and we probably, as much as possible, need to have a discussion. If anyone is particularly passionate or wants to have that discussion, that we need to have a thought
yeah,
to
yeah,
elevating
that's fine.
those
So,
before we start to just do a math exercise.
yeah, so, just by looking at the people around the room when we're having this discussion, people are sort of okay with that might be the way that we go. So that's one, option. I think what we do need to do, though, is we do need to look at the back pages in 2 and 3 votes, and I would entertain anybody that has any concerns regarding what's in there that didn't get funded, to feel free to speak up. And I will start with one. Just I did allocate a bit of money in my allocation to them, and that's under received 3 votes, number 10. And I just
Navicare?
Yeah, NAVCAR, yeah.
NavCare. And so it does look like it's going to the Greater Trail Hospice Society. And unfortunately, this group, what happened is that they used to be the one big program that was run out of the Kayleen, what are the Kayleen?
Hospice Society.
Hospice. And when Kayleen closed, the program had to attach itself somewhere. And short of making their own society, they joined the Greater Trail Hospice Society in a regional move. And so they still have their programming up and running, and it's still, this money would be coming to the Nelson Group, but the name is a bit of a lost leader, unfortunately, because now that's who they had to, apply through the society or the nonprofit to be able to be at the table. And I probably would have done what many might have done, and it was the fact that I was at the meeting and the young woman at the night that they had the house did come and wanted to make a point of the fact that the money was coming, and that's just the society that they're operating through at the current time, that it would be coming back to Nelson to serve our residents here. Anyhow, that's just an example of one. So, yes, Councillor Tate.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, number 10 is the one that I had also circled. I believe that this group is doing some work that is a real gap right now that in our healthcare system, which the NAV helps to indicate. It really helps people navigate what to do when you have a big health issue, and lots of people don't have family or capacity to get through all of those components of the healthcare system. So I would speak in favor of supporting this, even though it seems like it's going to outside of our community. I think they're doing really good work here in our community.
I would support that.
Yeah, I did.
Just consensus.
So is that, I guess, what is our process here? So we take a project and move it into the grouping of 4? Is that how you want to do it? And keep it highlighted so you can come back to it, or?
I think we want to highlight it. So, I mean, the whole thing, does somebody want to throw in a number? Counselor Tate, would you like to throw a number out there?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Counselor?
I would like to throw 2,000 out there and add one other aspect of what this organization does is they do a tremendous amount of volunteer recruitment and training, which just adds to the depth of individuals caring for those people making those very challenging and often end-of-life journeys that is going to be an expanding career choice for and a greater need for our society. So I'd go with the $2,000. It's a critical need.
I'll second that.
Can we move that into 4 at 2,000
We just put 2,000 on the list, right?
or whatever, however you want to do it? I'm just like, but however you want to run it down there, because you're the guy with the computer running the, yeah.
And just for context, it did, the 3 votes it did have was 2,000, 2,000, 1,500. So in terms of adding it to the 4 grouping, would that be coming in at 1,500?
We just said 2, I think.
I think we agreed on 2, so.
And I think it still works as long as there's 4 of you that are on board with that, it sounds like, from what I'm hearing.
Yep.
Anybody else want to take a stab at anything there?
I do.
Now that you've seen the, okay, Counselor Page.
I would highlight Project 28, the Italian-Canadian Society Bocce Court redevelopment, specifically because of the work of Nelson Hoops and the funding they've received and the unlocking of that project in general by supporting the dependency that they have on the bocce courts movement. So if that helps that whole court achieve completion in its vision, then I would support this group because I think it helps us finish projects.
And could you tell us what the default number is for that, please?
We had 2 counselors that proposed to allocate some funds to this project in the amounts of 1,000 and 2,500.
I would throw out a number of 2,500.
Any discussion? Counselor Payne.
I tried to get more information on this one, and I just didn't have time to connect the dots with the people I was trying to connect with. I did participate in their fundraiser last year, and I asked where the funds were going to. They weren't certain at the time, and then they did donate funds. So I just feel that this group has the capacity to fundraise for an item like this. So I certainly would, give a portion of that. But the one thing that I notice on here, and I hope this is okay, because it does seem like a comparative balancing the, I feel that we're a little light on supporting youth in what we've selected here. Maybe that's just my first run over some of the activities, and other people can help me understand that better. But I would rather look at some of those projects. Councillor Tate is going sideways, so maybe not. Maybe I've missed. There are a couple of key youth projects that I think could use that, a $1,500 donation as well if we just gave $1,000 to the budget.
I'm going to go over here to Counselor Pinero, please.
Just a question for Councillor Page, actually. Maybe illuminate how those 2 projects
Yeah.
kind of work together. Interact.
That's what I would, okay.
Yeah. That's it.
Sure, I mean, he can tell you, I can tell you, but I'll let him tell you.
Whoever wants to tell me, it's fine.
Counselor Page.
So Nelson Hoops had put forward a project a number of years ago now to revitalize the tennis courts and expand them to include proper regulated basketball facilities that would require the bocce courts, which are in need of redevelopment anyway and renewal, to be moved further into the grassy location. And so this project in many ways unlocks the opportunity for Nelson Hoops to complete its project, which has already received permission from the city to do so, and they've kind of been waiting for the bocce group to get to a certain space where they're prepared to actually do the redevelopment of their courts. And so it's kind of in that sense intergenerational when you look at the whole project that will be unlocked from that. If they can get their funding in order and we can support them in that, then they'll move there and redevelop their bocce courts further into the grassy area down by Lakeside, and then that creates space for Nelson Hoops to fit the project, which is really, one of them is very senior focused, the other one is very youth focused. We're getting that court space renewed.
And
That's
so-
how I see it.
The basketball is sort of waiting on the bocce to be able to move so that they can take
Yeah,
up
and the
the space
basketball-
that
Oh, I
was
do believe bocce has already been dug up at the park.
Yeah, I mean, it's
And they're
gone.
moving now, bocce's kind of not there. The bocce,
So is the alternative to just have basketball and no bocce? Is that what sort of the reality on the ground is at this moment?
no, there would be their own organization together, and then
They're two separate spots.
probably, I know that basketball and the Italian Society at one point were having some discussions, and
I think wasn't the idea you'd have the basketball court and then you'd have the bocce
yeah, decided.
court
That's
beside
the
it?
idea.
Sort of a bigger version of what was there before.
Yeah, what was there before it was not in great shape. It really
It
needed a lot of
looked-
work, and so I think there wasn't a lot to save, and so they're kind of moving it all out into that field area.
I would note that the cost for the project is like 50,000, even though they're only, and they're from us. They're asking for whatever, but like the quote from Rockform is 47,000.
Yeah, that's a lot of concrete. Just saying.
It's a lot of digging.
Okay. Shall we just put a line on that right now, or does somebody want to move something, and will somebody second it?
I'll move it for 2,500.
I'll second that.
Okay, okay. And is there a flavor then to move that up to the 4 votes area? Okay, you know what, we're gonna put 2,500 in that square, we're gonna just leave it right where it is, and it'll be a flagged one, so whatever magic color you wanna use, Gabe, that we don't lose that one.
Right now, like you've got it, you have moved it and seconded it.
Yeah,
So I don't,
well, I mean,
so let's not do that if we're not, like, I'm just thinking it gets really muddy if we start moving and seconding and.
Then not vote.
oh, okay, sorry, so I won't use that language then.
Yeah.
That's fine. No more language on that. It's more about the fact that I was looking for at least one other person to be supportive of the concept.
Sort of. That's the
Okay. Whew.
I need a cookie.
Wow. I'm gonna be writing some big checks here to make up the shortfall if I'm not careful. Anybody else have something there that they want to pull out or have any concerns? I'll fly with another one. Well, actually, I've got a couple of them. One is the flight cage, and the other one has to do with wind as well. I just looked at some of these smaller projects and the impact. So I'm looking at I'm just going to talk about 17, the Sailing Association. I realize that this is a small group, but sailing has had an uptick. Sailing is historically has been very important to Nelson and the region. There's always been a sailing club here for time immemorial. And I just sort of thought something like a wind data monitor. Just seems to me that it's, to me, it kind of fits what these grants are about. Here's the project, here's the thing, there, we spend the $530 and we've got a wind monitor. It's just like, they're not coming back next year to ask for the, wind monitor,
No.
whatever. So I just sort of think that it always gets, I kind of find that I get down to, even in my own way of doing that, and I get down to these little small money asks, and I'm like, I ran out of money before I got here, but I sort of think that sometimes they make sense. It did get 3 votes, and it's one of those ones where I would just be saying that it needs to be the $530, because it's ridiculous to think that you're gonna give them $100 and they're gonna go buy the wind monitor, but it's obviously $530.
I would support that.
With that, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we've got a few supports around the table, so
I actually don't.
you don't support that, yeah. But,
But I mean, not
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's not how
yeah,
it sound, but I may be like, trapped in a outmoded way of thinking, but I feel like the sailing community can afford their own wind monitor somehow. Like if you can afford a sailboat, it just, I don't know. It's
They
not
do-
something that ever was, coming from a lower, economic background myself. It was never something that was accessible or even conceived of by me to go sailing. And I don't know if that's reality's changed in 2023 or not, but it just seems like a very niche thing and something that generally commands a lot of money. So it's not a lot, and they already have a boat. So, like.
they do some, just so you know, they do youth programming to get young people out sailing, so they do have, so it's not just about, I completely hear what you're saying. Sailing is not, sailboats and sailing is not a poor person's thing, but they do youth programming. So that was also my thought when Councillor Payne was also referring to the fact that some programs, do deal with youth, so.
And youth of various economic backgrounds, or youth with sailboats. Like, I don't mean to like stick it in there with like,
No, that's fine.
or F1 racing or something, but it seems a little bit, yeah, it's just a little bit in my radar.
Yep, no, that's fine. Councillor Tate,
I think that's an interesting conversation to have. And I don't know if it's part of our strategic planning or part of our own, the way that we approach the work that we have to do, and the 3 of us are new at this. I hear what you're saying, 100%, about like, who do we give money to? Are we giving money to things that generally are used by folks who probably likely have a little bit of expendable income? The other piece that I look at, and this is maybe a counterpoint, is that we have folks in our community who contribute to the community. We have folks that have different interests, whether it be sailing or motocross or bocce or basketball, and they show up at Canada Day and they come down to drag story time, and they have kids in the schools and their dentists and their waitresses and so on. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that we do have a broad spectrum of folks in our community that have different income base, and that doesn't devalue their interests in my way of thinking. Just because the thing that you enjoy doing has a higher baseline of cost doesn't mean that we can make a moral judgment on whether or not that's a thing that is useful in our community. It's a little bit tricky language there. So I just wanted to throw that out there and kind of like, okay, let's consider, is it the activity? Is it the fact that the folks maybe likely have a higher income bracket? Like, it's just curious conversation to me.
So, I
Help
guess
me.
I should clarify myself.
Sure, thank you.
So definitely there's no moral judgment behind it at all. It's just a matter of like, we're giving money because presumably people need it. You know what I mean? And it's whether you're doing something this or doing another thing, you're doing it because you enjoy it, and that's great. And we support you doing that, but whether you need the help or not, I think, is another conversation. And if it's taking money away from people that need the help, then that's where we make a decision. It's not a moral decision or like disparage sailing. It's just not something that ever, like and again, I might be wrong here, but it's just, it was never something that was available to me or even conceived of by me or anybody. So that doesn't mean it's wrong or bad or anything. It just means that like that segment of the population, to my thinking, might be more like, it's not apples or oranges, but like, basketball was something that you can go into groups, you don't need a vote. It's not moral. It's just reality. And so the point is that if you need money, we should get you some money. And if you don't need money and you can fund your own interests and still continue to do them because it's obviously great for you and great for the people to take part in it, that's, nobody's trying to stop people from sailing. It's just whether they need money or not, you know what I mean? That's all. That's my only comment. It's not trying to disparage it at all. Sorry if it came across that way.
Okay, I think before you, Councillor Woodward, was Councillor Payne, unless Councillor Payne, because you haven't spoken.
I just want to be really quick. Number one, we're talking about a piece of equipment that is requested by one group but can be used for many other purposes. I would assume if you have a canoe or a kayak or a sailboard, then it might also be useful to have that information. I don't know whether it'll be accessible. And we're probably putting a lot of, I don't mean to say that $530 is not, but they've spent more time probably filling out the application. So it's an interesting thought around that, just to throw it in. So I'm ready to go unless there's something
Councillor
critical
Woodward.
around that.
Councillor Woodward.
I was just gonna say, I think we had 4 votes for that, so I
Yep.
think we can, thank you, Councilor Panero, for your comment, but I think we can,
Do we have 4 votes?
Yeah, we did. Councillor Page.
oh, I have one, actually.
I think the values being, like, for me, we were talking about 2, and I like the small amounts of the light cage.
Like,
This, I'm looking at the application again for sailing. What makes it stronger to me is if the product being used had a natural ability to connect to larger weather systems like weather.com or places the general public goes to access information. This is going to be publicly available if you know where to go to get it, which is of course a resource that user groups figure out canoeing, rowing. So there is that benefit, but what would make this stronger to me is if it was an even better product that naturally connected up on a commercial level to better information to be used by the broader public. That being said, I think, yeah, there are opportunities for user groups of non-sailboats, but watercraft in general, in the know that this is available and they'll find it. So there is that stronger for me to make it a slam dunk, but the price point is low enough that, yeah, I think I can support it.
okay, so we've had 4, so
I've moved it into the 4 category just based on the
Okay.
fact that it
Thank
appears
you.
that there are 4 councillors supporting it.
so I'm gonna,
I was, can I move on to another one?
yeah, well, I had 2 there, because I had the bird cage.
Okay.
I was all about flight and wind and
Okay.
air.
Trying to make a theme.
Okay.
And I just sort of thought, like, I know over the years, I've supported many the projects, the spay and neutering, the Be Aware. I've never seen this flight rescue, and if you ever had the opportunity to see bird rescue or raptor work, it's pretty exciting stuff. And I just sort of think that birds are part of the natural environment, and I think this is a great opportunity, and they're wanting $500 on an $11,000 cage that, or their project's $11,000. I thought that wasn't, again, that was one of those things, it wasn't an outstanding ask, and yes, anyways, there we go.
I would note that this bird cage is being built in Golden. Were you aware of that? Mm-hmm. Okay, just checking.
Anyhow,
Let's support that.
yeah,
Along the same line, I was thinking about the number 36.
Do you not want to, like, maybe determine if by line, just for the sake of efficiency, or do you want to just identify these and come back
I
to
think
them?
that, I mean, I think Does anybody feel like we're not moving, like, I mean, well, there's 3 people in the room that have never done this before, but I think we're moving along at a pretty
Yeah,
good
that's fine.
pace.
I just knew you had started the conversation on the flight cage and.
Yeah, I wasn't seeing very much there, so I'm just
Okay. Okay.
seeing,
Thought we were all supporting it. I support
so,
it. No one else supports it? I support it.
oh, you support it. Anybody else support birds?
I didn't
Birds
see
can make
was
it from
for
Golden.
raptors up.
I think most of the ones are.
I think we probably have to do some sort of.
Yeah, so,
I can't find the, sorry.
you know,
I can't find the
could you send her
applications. It's probably-
she can't find the application, so you've obviously got it, so you can
Oh, me?
delve into,
The
no. well,
PDF? Yeah, I
I
can send it.
thought I thought it was, not raptors.
I thought it was big birds.
You want the 336 page one? That one? No problem.
Did we have another one besides that one?
I'm just kidding.
I didn't think it was 336, but I read a lot of pages.
I have a question about the bird cage.
Sure.
If it's in Golden, is there, like, where does our purview end?
Well, I
And-
mean,
and
one
do
can
they
decide,
have the capacity to ask?
I already imagine that they're asking, so they're asking us for 500. If you go back through the applications, to the applications this year, I didn't delve into them in detail. They often say where else, they often highlight how much they're asking, thank you. Counselor Tate has it open and she can refresh everybody's memory, but Golden is in the Columbia Basin Trust. So they're within the trust. We normally don't go way out of field, but they might be the only, rescue center for a particular thing within a particular geographic area, that's all.
They ask for 500 from every single possible area.
Probably
and
every
city.
area within the, yeah.
Okay.
So, and everybody does that, like you could, like, when we get these requests, you can see like the trail hospital asks for money, I mean,
And as they say, we release the animals back in the area from which they came. It's a bird hospital.
So it is raptors then. Sorry, I didn't receive it yet.
Oh, well, that's our
I assume that
stellar IT, because it's
Oh.
like protecting you from something
Oh,
not
it's,
good.
it's on the way there?
It's on the way.
I can keep searching for it. I may find it.
Coming.
anyhow, that's there, let's just move on to another one. Counselor Woodward, because you have something, so let's start that discussion.
I was thinking on 36, 2,000, because spray and neutering pets is so critical to keep pet populations down, and medical assistance. So, yeah, I think it's a.
And can you give us, so let's go back to, can you tell us what so 3 people voted, what was the amounts?
Sure. So it was 4,000, 4,000, 1,000.
Fairly good support there. So I would just put on the table 2,000 to that society.
Anybody have any further discussion? Can I get a couple of nods or hands or not emotion?
I
Okay.
would just sort of think that if you have a pet, you should have the ability to care for the pet. And that's part of pet ownership. And encouraging people to take responsibility for their pets, although they clearly a lot of times don't, which is, I guess, the point, is we're trying to cover that shortfall.
Yeah, he might fall in some hard times, and you can't afford things, and then if your pet's not neutered, then you have even more pets, which you can't handle, so then it just kind of goes in a spiral, so I just thought this would be a good way of helping out in that area.
Counselor Page, was that just a hand of, yep?
A hand of support, but I would say it would be, just because you're poor on hard times shouldn't mean that you can't have a kitten, and that kitten doesn't need to be spayed or neutered.
Thank you, Counselor Page.
You're welcome.
Any other support?
Counselor Payne.
And I would have to concur. I see so many instances of individuals who, especially through the pandemic, have encountered a higher degree of isolation and loneliness, and often the relationship is part of a mental health plan in my experience. Also, people who are maybe unhoused have that same experience where it would be a support, both physically and mentally, to have that pet and in a healthy way.
Yeah, I would note that the folks that are referred to this program are referred by, it says here, social services, local food banks, and bylaw. So it's intended for those.
Yeah, well, that helps for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Because I wasn't sure if it's just the one where when you go in, looks like this one is referral based.
Okay.
Okay, it looks like we have quite a bit of in favor for that, so we'll look at 2K and move it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else got a 3 or a 2? Councillor Pinero.
This is again like out of our service area, kind of, but I guess as you said, it's in the CBT. So, the window, line 44.
Right?
It's just having grown up in a really small community, and the lack of things is quite apparent in those places, and so it's just such a small amount. That's why I put it on my original thing. It just seems so. It seemed like it would make a big impact in a community that size, and it's very the amount that they're asking for, and yeah, just bang for the buck. And there's so many things here that are in thousands of dollars, and this just seems like almost nothing, but it does have an impact in a place like Wendell.
Yep, I'm an okay for that.
No, that was,
Me too. Sure.
yep.
Okay, there we go. That one gets moved. Councillor Payne.
It's interesting that we only had 2 applications under local economy. And the one application, 27, the Nelson Electric Tramway Society, has just received a $1 million grant. Is that correct?
The Tramway Society has got a $1 million grant? Please, that's the best news I've heard for a long time.
$1 million is a lot
Not
of money.
announced yet, though? Okay. Thought I heard it here. My apologies, honey. But I do want to draw, so that's the one local economy. That's why I took a look at that, what the need would be there. And the second one is a 25, the Nelson Civic Theatre Society, which is supporting the Kootenai screen-based industry, which, I do have the benefit of being on the Cultural Development Committee, so have heard of many of the initiatives and outreach that the screen-based, the Kootenai screen-based industry is attempting to do, and I think that's a significant investment in our community. We just need one movie, one TV show, one to make that money up and draw more attention. I don't know how much money was made when Roxanne came here, or on Cedars, or some of the other films that we've been able to host in our community. But I do understand that a lot of work is being done by that group to attract that industry here. And once we became a proven venue, I think that's a huge economic generator. So I was sort of surprised to see not a lot there.
I think that's a strong case. I am looking at the film-based, Kootenai screen-based industry, and looking at the asks to City of Cascar and Town of Creston at 2,000 and ours at 10. I know we are anchored here. I would be open to something like 3,000 or 4,000. I think there's a very large gap between the other major population center asks and ours, given the scope is supposed to be our area, including those areas. So I don't even think CASO was asked for some funds. So, yeah, I would support 3,000.
So this is on number 25?
Correct. Yes.
I'll support that.
25. 3,000.
3,000 for number 25?
I just have a question.
3.
Sure.
This one looks like it's mostly geared toward a person's salary. Am I understanding that? I didn't notice very many other ones like that. Could you give me some historical context on whether or not that's typical? Because it's not in the policy at all? Some grants, you're only allowed to use it towards X.
Yeah. The CBT doesn't put that kind of restriction on this round of granting. There's lots of CBT grants that we apply to, then it would be like project only, no operating, right? So
Okay.
within this model, this is community money, every community gets some money. So for some people, yeah, it could be paying the grant writer, or it could be paying so that you can give everybody a little stipend. Like, I mean, it could be any multiple number of things. They want public participation in, so that's why we had the public meeting. But in terms of really restricting, that's up to us to decide based on, previously being maybe on or off the list. Council, I'm going to ask if we could have a 5-minute recess, if that's okay? Yep. So.
Move to recess.
Thank you. Seconded. Okay, that's been moved and seconded. And
All in favor?
are we all in favor? Thank you. Call, and anyways, if I could have a motion to reconvene, please. Moved by Woodward, seconded by Page. All those in favor? And that's carried. So I believe we were at number 25, and we had gotten enough support for $3,000 for item number 25, and that's been moved up into the 4+ area. Continuing on, does council have any other things here that they've noticed that they would like to discuss or move? So the only one that was still outstanding was my birds in flight,
Yeah, like,
which we never moved up.
support that.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna support that. Okay, so that one's moving up now.
As long as they're taking chickens.
Was there agreement around the bocce court redevelopment?
That one was flagged, so where are we on, shall we try this again? Oh, I guess before we try that, is there any other ones in 3 votes or less or 2 votes? Okay, I have Councillor Payne.
32. I know the application came in under the Nelson Senior Center Society, but that, when I read that application, I thought that is a chess club to get more equipment so that they can hold multi-generational tournaments, which I personally feel that chess being a strategic game and also a low point of entry, low barrier entry, is an excellent investment to encourage youth to participate. So if we have the ability to hold tournaments, and maybe there are tournaments around the Kootenays or the Basin that I'm just not aware of, and I'd be happy if anyone wanted to point that out to me, but I think it's an opportunity for us to strengthen that segment.
Yep, so Gabe, could you just tell us, so there was 3, could you tell us what the bids were?
For
What the bids were for this?
project, for number 32, for the Senior Center Society project, we saw 3 counselors allocating money at 1,604, 1,604, and 500.
Okay, so 2 at the full amount and 1 at 500. Does anybody want to throw a number out?
1,000?
Okay. And is there support for $1,000? Okay, there we go. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Councillor Page would like to speak.
I do struggle with this one because it's supposed to be about broadening the scope of the region, and yet the only ask was to Nelson, right? Like, you're trying to engage the central Kootenay, you're trying to bring tournaments to other parts of the community, and yet only Nelson is asked for these funds. And for these kinds of things, I really would like them to spread it out more. I guess at 1,000, I could be. I don't understand.
Yeah, I think
I'm the one
let's
who
not
wants to
use that
support Window. I
terminology,
want
so-
Yeah, and I think that,
We'd like to
and I would
avoid
say,
that.
Counselor Page, you've been here for, oh my gosh, now this is round 5 for you. And I've been through,
More.
many rounds of this over time. I'm fine with, it didn't tweak my interest. I'm fine with 1,000. And I guess the thing about the application is sometimes I think the difficulty is that these smaller groups, again, some of them are wise enough to sort of try to go beyond. And I think probably the Wendell Community Center knows because they know that they can apply to regional directors to try to get some discretionary money, which we don't have in the city of Nelson. But I think small groups don't realize that they could ask somebody else. And I've never applied for one of these things, so I'm not too sure, I mean, how clear it is. Probably that you want to apply anywhere else, and it'd be like, well, we're going to play chess here, and we're going to try to get the school maybe involved, or whatever. And I'm probably not thinking, well, I need to be asking Trail for some money for my chess game. So I think sometimes it's like, it's not that it's not there for them to ask other communities, but it's that whole focus of where you're going. Because over the years, I would say that groups have gotten smarter, shall I say, with their asks. Because I can tell you, when this program first started, when we first started doing this, there was hardly any asks anywhere else. And I would sit there and think, I know that 50% of the membership of this group is in E or F, but they haven't asked the area because they also get to go through this process. So I think over time, people have gotten wiser. Counselor Page.
Well, and in this conversation, I wonder, and correct me if I'm wrong on how this works. When you go out the way that our form is built and ask for 500, 500, 500, 500, 500, when your costs are $1,604, you end up in a situation where you're requesting a large amount of money with the anticipation you get it from all the places, and there's no consideration of potentially asking for funds and then being over your ask without making your ask look inflated, which might be a different gap to take us on a different tangent.
Anyways, but I think we've moved that now up for $1,000 into the force. Counselor Woodward.
I'd like to go back to the front
Yeah,
and go to the received 7 votes,
right?
29, and see if there is a appetite for adding another $5,000 to this group. Their original ask was $16,450. They've been allocated, according to this, $10,000. And my pitch is this society has taken that park an incredible distance with an incredible amount of hard work, labor, volunteerism, community organizing over a decade, and really made that a very, very special location in Nelson. And I feel like they've used their monies that they've received over the years really well, and have kind of made a gem of a place for us all.
Agreed.
So I'm seeing how the floor feels, but I would like, since we have 21,728, I'd like to add $5,000.
Well, can we just
Counselor
max it out?
Tate.
Or we could just max it
Just
out.
max it out.
But I want to say how great of a project this is as well.
Go ahead.
Okay. I love that it's not only just a really cool outdoor space and all the things that you've said, but this is geared specifically towards making it more accessible for folks with mobility issues, which is hard to do in a mountain town and hard to do when you already have an established space. So I'm super impressed that this is the direction they're headed.
So I'm hearing full amount at this point. Are there any naysayers? Nobody's gonna, I shouldn't have asked it that way. Nobody's gonna stick their hand up if they're a naysayer at this budget. It's hard. Sorry, that was, yes, procedural error on the part of the mayor.
Poisoning the well.
A loaded question.
Yeah.
Any curmudgeons in the room?
So if we
Anybody
make
who
that
doesn't
16,450, what have we got left?
You're at 15,278 remaining.
Okay, if I may. I would love us, I'm not gonna give a speech about it, I'd love us to max out the asks to the the Friends of the Nelson Municipal Library for that additional programming space.
What number is that, Keith?
8.
That's 8.
8, and so it's an additional 1,190.
Let's second that.
Okay. Looks like we're good on that.
And I would also like us to do the same for 31, Nelson Reflections, supporting youth in sports. I know how much they've been impacted over the years, and they deliver great programming in our recreation facilities.
Just a question. Nelson Reflections is the
Swim club.
swim club.
No,
One of the
it's
swim clubs.
synchronized.
It's synchronized swimming. It's one swim club.
Synchronized only, or is it?
No, it's just one swim club. And we do have, last time I looked, we have 2 swim clubs as well as the Nelson Reflections.
I'd support that. How many supports do we have?
We got
Where are
2
we?
right now, kind of just, I'll throw one out on the front page here that I would like to see, and that would be 39, and it doesn't have to go to the crazy amount that they've got there, but I'd like to see that go to the 7,000. This is a group that I see the city actually, you know, we're a bit hamstrung in terms of funding. This is a group that wants to do an educational program, wants to get out there, wants to go door to door if necessary, wants to work with us. I'd like to see them, you know, either get the full amount or at least $7,000.
Support.
Support. They're doing it. Like, their Instagram is great.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's go to the 7291. It's
okay,
very
full amount for them,
well thought out proposal.
yeah.
11,797 left.
Yeah, so then we can go back up and like, we're still trying to figure out where we're going here with Nelson Reflections. I'm wondering, Counselor Page, if we went up another 1,000 on that, perhaps it would help your,
I'm happy with that.
okay, can we go then to 2,000 for Nelson Reflections? Okay, and we're good for that then.
Can we go to 3,000 for the Nordic Ski Club machine?
I tell you, I would be happy with that because that group is growing
What
in
number?
leaps and bounds.
Oh, there, 30. Got it. Yep.
Sorry, what
30.
number?
I'm in.
35.
Where that's number 30,
It's actually an electric.
and it's an electric snow machine,
Yep. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Like a snow making machine?
No,
like
No.
it's a snowmobile.
It's electric.
Snow with their sled. It's a skidoo, yeah.
And that
But
makes the
not a
track for them or something, or what?
They
does
have
it
a
do?
track machine, but this is also a machine that helps them with stuff and also I think with rescue if they
It's a
have to.
rescue as well.
Yeah, you have to move things around
Yeah, and it's their, like,
space.
it's their electric side by side.
It's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like having a tractor.
Okay.
It's pretty cool and it's electric. I mean, that's what really I think I actually put in the full amount for this. But
Mayor, is that you're asking for the full, so that's.
yeah, so
1,000 more?
Bear went to full and if we go Nelson Nordic full, where are we at, please?
If you go full on Nelson Nordic, you'll be at 8,797.
Still left, okay.
We can leave some in the kitty for next year too, just so people know. Just complicates things up.
Where's the polka dot on here? Oh, they're at the top.
Okay, they got max.
Could I put some, or sorry. go ahead.
Sure, go right ahead.
Well, I'm just looking here, the farmer's market is at 2,000 and their ask was 2,199. Could we just bump it up?
Yeah,
to
we could just give them the full
the
amount.
full amount? Is it okay?
It's a waste.
I have a question on that one as well.
Yeah,
So what is we're giving the city of Nelson money? Isn't the farmer's market is run by the city of Nelson? It just seems like an unusual, help me understand that better.
Counselor Woodward.
So, so this is CBT money. And so.
I get that.
So over the years, this has happened a number of times where there was like renovation at the youth center, or there was, other city facilities that needed some help, and through the CBT, and we, as a group, decided that was a value. Anyone can apply.
I understand how the program works, Councillor Woodward, thank you.
So I don't, it's regional money going to a city endeavor.
That we distribute.
Councillor Page.
Can I just say that we have the CBT money that comes through the purposes that it comes through, and therefore it has the opportunity to have investments in our community. We have the taxation and fee powers to pull from property taxes. So there's a kind of a principle there of like, do we always use property taxes to fund all the public benefit that we ourselves might end up delivering? And I think this is one of those places where we're taking that CBT funding that comes from the treaty and saying, yeah, but we're the delivery partner in this case, and not everything necessarily needs to be on the back of the taxpayer. And this is one place where just because we happen to be the delivery partner, it's kind of a, how do we allocate the funds that are available? Because I think embargoing ourselves also doesn't really do justice just as a general principle to be cared for, because it's all coming from the taxpayers on when it comes to our revenue in some sense.
And this, I would say, covers off a basin issue. I know that when talking with John Estrella a few months ago, that one of the things that they're feeling is going to become a big part of their revised strategic plan is there's going to be a much probably bigger section on food and food security. And this is what we're doing. I mean, these aren't Nelson farmers that come into Nelson. These are our farmers in our trust area that come in and participate in this program. So I don't particularly have a problem with the fact that the city is the applicant in regards to this.
Considering the public good.
Yeah.
That these city.
And the trust is, like, I just know that the trust is going to be looking for these, like, food initiatives as part of their strategic plan going forward. It's coming up quite a bit lately. Councillor Page.
Well, I guess we'll just.
And then Councillor
wait for this one to finish.
Payne.
So I noticed that Creston and Castlegar have been asked for money as well. So I guess we wouldn't have the information to know if their markets, well, we would. Their markets haven't asked us for money. Otherwise, we would have it here.
Yeah.
Correct?
If it's not
Okay.
here, it's not here.
So Creston and Castlegar did not ask Nelson for money,
No.
but Nelson is asking Creston, Castlegar, Markier, which is far. Yeah,
Let's see what they
okay.
do next year.
Just wanted to make sure I understood that. I thought so the market is not self-funding, and that's not one of our directions for that.
I think it tries to be self-funding,
Okay.
but I can't.
And I think too, like say with the youth center kitchen rebuild, there's a regional use of the youth center. So this is regional money going to a regional facility located in Nelson, run by the city, but it's still, many kids go from the regional area.
Yep, and the library,
the
lots
library.
of shared use. I'll just finish with this question, that something wild and crazy happened this year and the market comes out with a surplus of $10,000. Would we then share it back with these communities who have, probably not?
The more successful we are, the more we're supporting our agricultural partners across. I buy products from Preston all the time. The more we thicken those connections, even intermarket, it's a iterative process that goes over years and years. But
Okay,
the more we support that and grow it, the more that network is healthy and feeds itself.
yeah, just trying to make sure I have the equity piece.
Yeah, and again, I think it's important, it's about the people that also participate in the market. So we have vendors that come to the market, and perhaps Councillor Woodward can tell me if I'm wrong, but we have vendors that come from Creston, and we have vendors that come from the Castlegar area. And that's where I would see where we're applying for that, because it benefits those vendors if we have a very successful. This is about special events. This isn't about the every Saturday market. This would be Market Fest and the Harvest Market and the things where more effort has to be put in, and we need more volunteers and And it's about the fact that this is across I think that's why we're applying to those other ones. I can't read anybody's mind because I didn't make the application.
Yep.
That would make that,
That's absolutely right.
I would
it's
just
because
say-
the fact it's the cross jurisdiction of where our vendors come from.
I would just say that that a lot of what is in the farmers markets all over is a regional, it's coming from the region to a population center where there's more revenue.
Yeah, where they get more exposure, so.
Yeah.
And those are big, happy events for sure, those special events
So.
that we put on.
So I just wanted to get if the table is okay
We've
with
still got some more money, so,
the 199 to 199.
yeah, I think we're gonna go the full amount. I
already
think we've done
recommended.
that, yeah. And where are we at now, Gabe?
8,598.
So I would like to, one we didn't have a discussion about, if I may, Mayor.
Sure.
Second page, number 45. Career Connect, bringing greater hours at the Nelson District's Women's Center to scale the existing drop-in program to adequately meet the needs of gender diverse individuals. I think I would propose to allocate the remainder of the funds to that project.
Discussion, counselors. Sorry, we're gonna have discussion. Can somebody just tell me, did we increase the children's area to the full amount?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I suddenly realized as I'm scanning my notes here, I'm not.
I wish I could find the.
This one might be missing the district component that we're talking about. Even though it's the Nelson and District Women's Center.
The West Kootenai Women's Center.
Yeah, but on the next page, it says Nelson and District Women's Center. So I think
Yeah,
it might
it's the
be.
center itself. for
Yeah,
sure.
it's in the Nelson building,
here.
it sounds
Yeah,
like.
and-
Yeah. Okay,
Not that,
I'm just curious.
so I'm gonna, while everybody contemplates the rest of the money going to, I just wanna go to number 40. Because although everybody, we kind of thought about we'd give everybody on 4 up kind of their money, but I guess there's 4 people that voted, and my guess is there's quite a divergent there. Could you tell me what the numbers are for 40? This was me because I had 397, I know that that's my number. So other people might have put in the full 2,000, I just want to contemplate, it's 397 based on how we rank these things.
Yeah, so it was 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, 397.
And then the 397, so I just, yeah, so, before we give the balance anywhere, I'm just looking at, I was just going back over the sheet to see how close we were to the full amounts for everybody, but, anybody want to make any comment about 40?
Yeah.
Is there any sort of, do we know what supporting them looks like and where
Attended those.
how it gets spent kind of?
I was probably the last one left attending them at this table. So it started out in the last term as a broad cross-section working group of local officials moving forward the commitments to be 100% renewable and breaking off into support groups. We ended up with a report that stretched the breadth of what electrification looks like in buildings and transport and all of those. And the working groups are an attempt to continue to keep local officials and staff engaged on moving those particular plans forward. I would support it getting the full ask, and I think the work before it is more about how to connect those conversations into concrete action, and that hasn't quite clicked, but I think it's also because it's a very, I think it's one of those things kind of pushing against a tough nut. And so I'm okay with giving more space and more time for them to continue to have those generative conversations among staff and local officials.
Well, I guess, and the only thing I could just add before I go to you, Councillor Woodward, is the fact that my understanding, and I could be wrong, and I'm sure that Councillor Page will correct me, but this group now, this 100% renewable, is that I believe now every city, every at least municipality now in the West Kootenai, so Trail, Roslyn, Nelson, Castlegar, Caslow, have all signed on to this particular Neighbors United 100% renewable. So what was happening is at the beginning, there was a few that were signed on, and I think it made the conversation more difficult. Now more have signed on to become part of the discussion for this group, and I think that we've discussed it many times. And our green champion isn't here today with us, but I think the idea is, well, and you're there, and you're over there, is that that now there's the potential, because we know that if we're going to be successful, we actually have to have some kind of discussion about doing this as a region. Like doing it as a one-off, I mean, doesn't really work. We need to have a regional approach, and I think this table allows that discussion for further regionalization of what we might plan to do, and to be able to share our successes and, of course, our failures as we try to move these projects forward. Do I have this correct, Councillor Page?
You do. One piece of work I would highlight is they have been requesting from both us and the RDCK, formal designation of a liaison to go to those groups, and that is work we should ensure that if we fund this, have the discussion, who are we sending, make sure our support is.
Oh, that's two separate conversations.
Yeah, that is two
Are,
separate conversations.
but
We're not
we
going to
do-
decide that here
we
today.
We gotta do them together. Like, we don't have to do them together now. I'm just saying we have to action that request from many months ago now. Because why would we fund them if we're not gonna send someone to go be on the working group?
Well, sorry, I'm just gonna call you on the logic there. We're not sending anybody to all these other groups.
No.
This is the local government.
Working group.
And do we not have someone?
No.
Okay.
We haven't.
Oh, from
So,
staff.
so we're not gonna have,
We have
so
staff
Councillor,
going.
Councillor Tate, be assured, we're not gonna have this discussion right now. We're gonna decide now whether or not we look at full funding and reducing our number a little bit there and then trying to figure out where we are. So
Okay.
is there a flavor for this or, okay, so that's going up to the full amount. Yeah,
I just wanted to add, Mayor, that this group, I think, we worked really hard as a municipality to develop our own climate action plan.
Yes.
And I think that this group is really that regional scope where I think it's much more challenging on a very dissipated regional area to gather everyone together. We have the ability to do that because we're so concentrated here in a small area, so.
Yeah, let's just share our best practices out.
Yeah.
okay, so as I look at my sheet
7,000 left,
here,
Fair Connect
so you're
for the gays.
I got two maybe.
yep, so Councillor Panero, do you have something else that you'd?
Well, just these like a top-up situation.
All right, so yeah, the only thing that now isn't full on the front page, from what I can see, is the Nelson Baseball Association, which would be 24. Like if we're just gonna go back to the first,
Can you say the number?
number 24
you.
isn't got the full amount. Number 2 does not have the full amount, as does 33 and 13 and then 42. So on the front page, the ones that haven't been topped up to the full amount are 24, 2, 33, 13, and 42.
Out of those, I would like to bump the Nelson Baseball and the Bee Awareness. If I had to choose between all of them, I would bump those up, I think. The baseball just is super well, a lot of people participate in that particular sport in this town, and I think the infrastructure is important there. And Bee Awareness just seems like a really integral part of climate action that doesn't necessarily cost a lot, but just seems very, important. And I think there's a lot of ignorance around that, especially this time of the year with people cleaning their yards and beautifying their yards and whatnot. And so it just seems like two important initiatives.
Okay, so starting with number 24, going to the maximum.
I would second that.
Okay, we're not using.
Sorry, I would support that.
Thank you.
Sorry. Support that.
I myself have no problem with it. Does anybody else have concerns?
I have concerns because I think, again, we go back to providing additional drop-in support for, especially given the context of what happened in Nelson this year, queer community, and we're gonna expend all these funds maxing out on equipment for parks that have had investments in recent years. I think there is a very great need for increased programming for mental health supports in the gender community. And I think the Women's Center has done a lot of great work repositioning itself, going to its membership, going through the struggles it's gone through to get consent from its membership to get where it's at. I think it's important that if they're going to expand hours and drop in access and offer increased programming to more people, for an ask $36,000, that we seriously consider offering what we have remaining on that sheet of $7,000 to help them do more with their work, because I think it impacts vulnerable community members in a much more powerful way than maxing out these other particular asks, which will just leave us with nothing to spend on that one. I think we
Okay.
need to spend the money
So
somewhere else.
hearing that, I just want to say, I want to just move down. Be awareness was also put on the table, so we need to finish the discussion around any increase from the 2 to up to the 4 regarding be awareness.
It's at the same point there.
What was the original allocations on that?
0.
0?
Yeah.
No,
That's
on-
36,000.
So nobody voted for it?
3 people.
So Councillor Payne, take a shot at whatever you'd like to take a shot at here.
I am highly supportive of Be Awareness. I think the project that they're requesting money for, building the hives to go into schools, am I correct? That's what I read, is an interesting and worthwhile project. I feel that I would be more supportive if they were doing more community-wide engagement around some of the things that we could all do as citizens to promote the bee health. So the education component, important, but they are, investing a lot of funds into creating the very cool, I think they have one at Frog Peak Cafe, or they have in the past, so you could see the bees. There's definite advantage in that, but yeah, I'd be more supportive of a wider community education piece around it. So I'm going for trans support. If I had to select between the two with the amount of money that
We're connected, I think.
you're connect, thank you.
Okay.
It was trans support, I think it was.
Yeah, maybe.
Further discussion? Anybody?
So Councilor Panero's put forward the Baseball Association and the Fair Bee Awareness. Would say I would support both of those.
Anybody else interested in supporting either of those?
Just sure.
Well, no, I mean, it's just. I just on bee awareness, I'm good either here or there. I would like to see some community expansion there. Just so you know, Jesse, because the fact that we can't put these back forever and forever, sorry, Councillor Pinero. Bee awareness applies every year to a CBT grant, to all of the communities like this. And there hasn't been a year that I can recollect that we have not supported them. Not necessarily always in the full amount, but we have always supported. It's never been one that's been a 0 or dropped off in any year of the CBT grants. And yeah, this year, some of the ones where there's been, I think I might have put some money towards just my personal inventory and this year I kind of did 2 things. One was I was trying to look at projects to finish, and one was projects that I'd never seen the names of before. Now, I have that luxury because I've seen the names so many times. And I just was trying to find okay, how do I go through this process this year for myself? But that's sort of how I did it a little bit. this year, so probably if I ended up giving something that's been on there a lot of times, it would have been a lesser amount than what was being asked for, just to allow other new names to come to the top, because I think, unfortunately, as much as this is a process, I think there's a lot of really great organizations out there that don't know that they have the ability to apply for this money. Now, we don't need twice as many people applying and then even diluting the money more, but I still think that's it's always about how do people find the information, and then it is a long, arduous application process, and some people might not feel they have the capacity to do it, but.
So not knowing not being here very long and not knowing the capacities of these different organizations super well, like, does Nelson Baseball have the capacity to move forward with this if they have to find $1,000 somewhere else?
Yeah, so
know,
in,
like
on the grants, it will say that. It'll have like, can this project proceed without the money? It's like one of the lines. So I'll look up that one up now, because we obviously don't have it all memorized. It's 336 pages.
Thanks.
You're welcome. I'll find it for you.
Because that would matter to me. Like,
Yeah,
if it-
yeah.
Okay, so my project was no, project will be 100% paid by volunteers was no, and is the project viable without funding support is yes.
Okay. That's fine.
And I don't know what this is a total sort of aside, is that some of these organizations that are societies, I mean, anybody's at liberty to make a personal donation, any and all of these groups, particularly ones that are societies. So, and that's more for the general public than to say to you counselors that you could make a donation. Or, I mean, you could donate your time. That's always, time is sometimes more important than money, but I think that's just something you also keep in mind, is that all of these organizations probably have some capacity to take charitable donations. Okay, so I see nobody else commenting about any of the other ones on this front that we didn't go to the map, which is absolutely and completely fine. So we've had some fulsome discussion. And so still on the table now would be the balance of this money going to item number 45 in the amount of, if I'm reading this number right, $6,995.
That's correct.
Any further discussion on that? Councillor Tate?
I'll speak in favor of supporting this initiative, because I know that it is difficult to find spaces for non-binary folks, and I appreciate the fact that the Women's Association is making those efforts.
Any further discussion? Councillor Woodward?
Yeah, I would support this, remaining funds. Yeah, I think with what we've seen recently, yeah, I think all the help is needed to facilitate better relations all around. So I would support it.
Okay. Well, it is 3:56. And at this junction, have we spent all the money?
Yes, if council is indicating that we're moving 45 in for the 6,995, that would put you at zero.
At zero. What do you call this, a regression line? Back to zero? What's the mathematical term for this, Councillor Tate?
Depends on the shape of the curve.
Yeah. So I think we did it with half an hour to spare for opportunity to go out and stretch your legs before we spend the next few hours here, but we will have a motion.
That's correct.
Yes. So we spent all the money. And so there is a recommendation before us. Does somebody want to move it?
So moved.
Okay, that's been moved by Page, seconded by Woodward. Councillor Page, please read the motion.
That it be recommended the council pass the following resolution. has considered applications for funding allocated to the City of Nelson under the Resident-Directed Funding Program for 2023 and recommends to the RDCK Board of Directors that the funding be awarded to the following organizations as followed. See spreadsheet.
Yeah, so successful projects will be listed by organization and funding amounts following council's decision. So we're not, for anybody that's listening, but they will be available in the minutes once they're posted on the city website. The process here now is that this will get sent, once we've passed this, to the RDCK. And who actually cuts the check? Or does it come back to us?
So
once
the
they're
check,
board?
I believe, will be cut by CBT. It'll be
Okay.
issued to these organizations.
In June, so there we go. So there's the date that we're kind of curious about, so. All those in, it's been moved and seconded, all those in favor of the motion, and that's carried unanimously. Thank you, council, for your time today on this. Good go around there for the 3 new ones doing this, and now we're all set for next year for the next round. So once again, this will go now as a motion to the next RDCK board, where it will be passed because it'll be moved by our representative, Councillor Page, at that meeting, and then that will flow back to the CBT and checks will be issued in June. So thank you, everybody. Can I have a motion to adjourn the special meeting? Moved by Councillor Woodward, seconded by Councillor Payne. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Thank you. We'll be reconvening